I could treat 10 people with maternal burnout, never use the same pin twice, never use the same herb twice, and never give the same piece of advice twice, never build the same toolkit. So I feel like it has to be a really nuanced, individualised intake of exactly what the picture is for that person.
Hi everyone and welcome back to No Place Like Home. I am your host Larissa and I'm here with my co-host today, Robynne.
Hi, welcome.
And today we are blessed to have Amy in with us. Hi Amy.
Hello.
We've got so much to get through today, so we're going to delve right into it. You are a mother, Amy.
Yes.
How many children do you have?
I've got an 8-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl.
Oh, beautiful. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's important to lead with who the mother is as her own individual, rather than focus on her relationship to her children first. I am a curious person. I am a compassionate person. I am very values-led. I have a very strong lifelong focus on women's health. So that's a really big part of who I am. I am late diagnosed autistic ADHD, so this is outside my comfort zone. Yes, and I am a mother to my son and daughter who are both in primary school now, so I feel like I have a little more capacity than I did in those early years.
Have you always had that fire in your belly for women's health specifically?
Yes, so professionally I'm a Chinese herbalist and an acupuncturist. I started straight out of high school. But I did work experience with a Chinese herbalist, a gynecologist, when I was 15 because my sister had really bad period pain.
Right.
So I have been interested in women's health from a Chinese medicine perspective since I was about 13.
That's incredible.
So it's before my first period, I was already like very invested in the different ways that we can influence women's health stories.
And did that TCM practitioner that helped your sister, did you see that evolution of what that sort of care and support did for your sister?
Yeah, so she was still in high school and had experienced surgeries, so laparoscopic surgeries and different interventions, implants, things like that, and nothing. She was just getting worse and worse.
Oh my God.
Missing lots of school. And it was a nurse at the women's that recommended my mum to this Chinese herbalist for my sister.
Wow.
And she stopped missing school. She started to come back to life a little bit very quickly from drinking the liquid from these sticks and twigs and bark, and I have a very scientific brain, and the fact that this horrific tasting liquid could possibly be an intervention where surgery wasn't, it didn't make any sense.
It was very conflicting for
it just does it
to resolve.
It doesn't make, like, from a common sense perspective, it looked like stuff from our backyard that was being boiled up. And it was fixing her period pain. And, so I did work experience with him when I was 15, and he was, I didn't know at the time, but like a world-renowned Chinese herbalist, and kind of took the time to explain the foundations to me, and that was just the rest of my life from there.
I know I've had the opportunity to experience being in your care, and I know that I came to you with such bad indigestion, and your care really supported me in that acute moment, and I haven't had it since, by the way.
Oh, good.
Yes. Good. I just think the breadth of knowledge that you encompass as a person, you really see that in your care as well. And now knowing that part of you, that feels like it makes complete sense as to why you feel the wisdom in your care as well, because it's like it's just there. It's quite profound.
Thank you.
You have a few other qualifications in amongst there.
Yes. So I've got a Bachelor of Applied Science in Chinese Medicine and a Bachelor of Applied Science in Human Biology. I did my birth attendant training with Ria Dempsey. I've done my motherhood studies certification with Dr. Sophie Brock.
Oh, two women who are just like, wow, powerhouses, Ria Dempsey and Sophie Brock.
So I've been very lucky from the start of my career, from 23, being exposed to Ria's active birthing classes and, you know, like so long before my own experience. So I really do feel like I've had the advantage of being supported by the matriarchs of, you know, Australian fertility, pregnancy and birth. And I mean, there wasn't really much of a postpartum situation back then, but I really do feel like I have had the benefit of these incredible women that have kind of paved the path for all of us.
Yeah, and sort of you're carrying on that knowledge and that wisdom from them. Yeah, no, you absolutely are. We want to discuss with you more about your practice, Reverence Story. I just want to touch on the name, because there's something about the name for me personally that, I don't know, it just has this literally reverence with me. Where did that come from?
Yes. So, and I guess I don't really mention it in my day-to-day. Everybody knows I do Chinese medicine. My name's Amy O'Brien. So they're kind of the more obvious markers. But I'm a very values-led person and I lead my experience of interacting with women around their health from a position of reverence. And the reason why I do that is because I've spent so long clinically sitting with women who tell me their big story about their IVF or their birth trauma or, you know, like this big hard thing that they've been carrying, and they are sitting there and you can tell that their experience is one of shame and kind of guilt and not enoughness. And I listen to their stories of how resilient that they have been and just like the breadth and the depth of what they walk through. And I can't see a millimeter of inadequacy in any facet of their story. And every single time, like we speak and then I put their pins in and I walk out the door and I think to myself, my God, like we walk sometimes the hardest paths and we sit in this not enoughness and it's the complete opposite of the actual reality. Like as the person that gets to be observing and listening to what's happening, I really want us to reframe that not enoughness of, you know, like the difficult postpartum to like, look at what I am carrying, look on what I am managing. And that's what reverence is to me. And I feel like rewriting postpartum and rewriting maternal health stories and what we deserve is a reverence story. And that's why.
Incredible. I love it, Amy. Let's talk specifically about the model of care that you provide and have developed for your practice.
Yes. So when it comes to postpartum, after I think it was in my second postpartum, I found a quote by Desmond Tutu, and I've got it written down because I'm terrible at remembering things. There comes a time when we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. And I think I was about, I think I had probably a 2 and a 4-year-old at that time. And it hit me on so many levels. I could not even figure it out. And and I still refer back to it now and the layers that are within this are, I think, very important. So for me, the first thing I had to do is acknowledge that I was one of those people in the river. You know, like I was really burnt out, really exhausted. It had been a couple of big years and I had to claw at the sides of the riverbed and crawl out and then just take a breath and be like, okay, like those hard days are kind of behind me. Take a breath. And I had to also acknowledge that I had spent my career up until that point pulling people out of the river. And as much as you can come at things from a prevention and early intervention perspective, as women, we're not trained to, we're not culturally really allowed to ask for care until it's really bad.
Well, the structure, the current structure and system doesn't support us in giving us that permission slip to be able to do it. So when we do it, we feel like we're burdening.
Yes, and then often the first few people we ask, whether it's our partner or a medical provider, will dismiss us. Yeah. So, you know, like we learn very early to not ask until it's bad. So acknowledging that had been my practice was like a hard thing. And also looking around me and knowing that what I was experiencing in terms of maternal burnout, it wasn't that special, you know, like every other mum at kindy, every other mum at playgroup, everybody else that I knew was experiencing different expressions of the same
thing,
you know, depletion.
Yeah.
And if nothing gets done about it, it remains. And I didn't want more women to continue to kind of like need to be pulled out of the river. And I sure as not want my niece who's 15 to be in that river. And I don't want my 6-year-old daughter to like, this is not the world we are handing these girls. Like absolutely goddamn not. And so, and there's a quote by Judith Arcada and it is, I'm bad with quotes, but let me get there. If we want our girls to be free women, powerful and strong, we first must be them ourselves. And I had that on my fridge at the same time as the Desmond Tutu quote. And I just remember thinking, okay, brave and strong is how we get there. And going upstream, let's have a look. And that's when I discovered Sophie Brock's work about motherhood studies and, you know, like sociology is something that I had never explored. The context in which we mother in and what that creates for women, like this perception of a perfect mother and a perfect postpartum and all of the things that we will mask so that it appears that we are enacting things in a particular way whilst internally carrying things that we don't allow people to see. So that's one of the things, like when you go upstream of maternal care, the perfect mother is there. Inadequate medical care and being dismissed and medical misogyny, inadequate research. There's so many things there in terms of gaps that need to be filled.
The barriers.
Yes. And then sitting with this quote still further, you identify why the people are falling in, but that can't be the end of the story, right? Like then you need to like go to that raging river and put some fences up so that you're redirecting women's experience in a different way. And that is unpacking everything we thought we knew about the perfect mother and the social construction of motherhood. That is allowing women to be honest and truthful, which, you know, like things like this podcast, allowing women to tell their truth. You know, we know, for example, that depression in pregnancy is widely underdiagnosed. But if you know that the perfect pregnant woman is always smiling and grateful, like why would you bring that up with your care provider? It's not safe. So we're, you know, like the fences are about things like home, like having a place to come to rest, and feel culturally and socially supported in choosing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So unlearning, learning, having a better medical care team around you that you can be honest with so that the shame and the stigma kind of melt away and the truth is there, and that allows prevention and early intervention. And where I've been playing, so that was kind of the last 2 years I've been thinking about that, like what are the fences we need to put up? And then more recently I have been playing with like the idea of, so we rewrite these stories and we stop women from falling in these rivers. But we can't just be holding them in this like stagnant, neutral territory, you know, like how do we make it beautiful? So not only are they not having to claw at the sides of this goddamn river, but so that their experience is beautiful. And there's so many ways that we can achieve that, you know, like anyone that has become a mother knows that pull to community that you feel that you never experienced before as an individual worker bee.
Yeah.
And that is something beautiful and an area of growth. The brain changes, like the neuroplasticity that occurs in the perinatal postpartum motherhood period, like there is growth that can be found there. Burning old stories about what it means to be the perfect woman, the perfect worker, the perfect pregnant person, the perfect mother, so that we can rewrite the ones we actually want to give our daughters. Like there's so much, even maternal ambivalence, which we spoke about before, this ability to hold really complex opposing thoughts is something that we don't really experience before motherhood in the same way. Yeah. But once we've developed those skills, they're so widely implementable. And I think that in my mind, the shift from pulling women who are, you know, we know postnatal depression is highest 3 or 4 years postpartum, pulling people out at that point, the shift to making it be something beautiful by that point, in my mind, it's so possible. Like there's so many.
I agree with you. It is actually really simple, but the system needs to allow women to actually be the instigators of that, because no one knows that more intrinsically than we do. However, we have a system that is very patriarchal and that is telling us how to be. Yeah. And I feel like there is certainly a tide coming of change whereby I certainly know I speak to a lot of women within the industry that have their own experiences and know what they want to see change. And I feel like that change is coming. But yeah, it is still the social construct of all of these things, and there's layers to it, but it's actually the scaffolding is really simple.
Totally.
At every point of the river.
And we have people, like we have thought leaders in all of the areas.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Like, yes, we need to change medical institutions' approach to postpartum. We have those people. The socio-cultural landscape, we have those people. The mental health, you know, like we have the right people. We just have to really harness what's already there. And I feel like it's not like I feel the same way, that it could so easily be a different story.
Absolutely.
And you're right, it starts really early on, because by the time women come to childbirthing age, their voice is already suppressed. So, you know, you think about it with young or little girls and, oh, she's so stubborn, or she's so this, or she's so that. I'm like, no, she's fierce and she's determined and she's got a voice, and it's protecting, it's supporting little girls.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be an advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
But it gets pushed down from such a young age that by the time they're old enough to have babies, well, they're too scared to speak up because,
we're labelling it as something.
We're labeling it that when she advocates for what she wants, you know, she's, you know, stubborn, or she's, I don't know what language or terms. Emotional.
We love that one.
She's, you know, there's all these negative labels rather than seeing it in a positive construct.
Yeah. And it's both right, because it's that, but then like we'll judge her for what she says, but at the same time we'll also send her this message that it's all very intuitive, and that she'll know how to do it. And nobody is going to know how to look after this baby like she will. But we've beaten out everything about her intuitive capacity in every period she's had, and had to just show up to work when she, like wanted to be resting. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and that was a big narrative that I told myself in the early days of first becoming a mother, that it was that, where's this intuition?
Yeah.
What is that? Does it come?
No,
how do I know it's here? Like, because
we just needed it protected.
Idea.
Yeah, you needed it protected when you're a teenager, because I work with teenagers and I've worked with women in their 20s, and if you protect it for them, it's beautiful.
Yeah. That brings me to, I want to talk about maternal burnout, and how do you, through your practice, support women that are experiencing maternal burnout?
I mean, it's so layered.
Yeah.
And even the concept of considering mothers' burnout as distinct from occupational burnout or, like the other forms of more readily understandable but I mean, it makes sense. The load that is on a mother is so particular to her set of circumstances. And it's always very individualized, and it's very changeable and adaptable, I would say, because I could treat 10 people with maternal burnout, never use the same pin twice, never use the same herb twice, and never give the same piece of advice twice, never build the same toolkit. So I feel like it has to be a really nuanced, individualized intake of exactly what the picture is for that person. And that's not to say that there isn't a skill set we can all develop to build our capacity and understand, but I feel like it has to be a very individualized kind of situation.
Yeah, and I feel like I understand that. Obviously here at home we see a variety of women from lots of different socioeconomic areas and circumstances. And so while there is a common skill set and foundation that we support here, every woman's story and every woman that walks through that door comes through with their version of their story. So the care is uniquely tailored for what they're bringing in with them. So, yeah,
And sometimes the label is actually, when you unpack it, somebody comes in and says that they're coming in for one thing, and when you actually unpack it, it's something much deeper or, like it's –
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the impacts of burnout on mental health? And I know this is probably –
I think everything impacts mental health.
Yeah.
And we're so short-sighted when it comes to that. Like I think back to when I had HG. Like I was the most unwell I had ever been in my life, and at not one point did any care provider do any mental health screening. At not one point post-birth, even though I call it the HG to PTSD pipeline. At no point did anybody in postpartum ever acknowledge that. I feel like almost the conversations are never had in terms of mental health. I think everything affects mental health. I think burnout and anxiety go hand in hand. It's all so interrelated, and you can't really have an extreme physical or you can't really have anything in extreme without it having flow-on effects for mental health. And maternal mental health is so stigmatized, and so we feel so much shame around it, and we're not met with any kind of honest, places to have those conversations. I think it's all related. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And compounding.
Amy, I have a question to lead on from that, because I think as a clinician that works in the postpartum space, there's a lot of evidence about midwives in particular not feeling like they have the skill set to ask those questions and to really be able to assess someone properly. Again, like, what do you wish someone had asked you in terms of your mental health after you'd had your daughter?
Well, firstly, I think that there's a lot of really great, easily available trainings now about speaking to people about, you know, as healthcare professionals, speaking about birth trauma, speaking about mental health, speaking about risk and all of those sorts of things. Honestly, I feel like there was nothing in particular anyone needed to ask, but I feel like for all women, if we give them safety and time, they will tell us what we need to know. And if we know the correct referral pathways to mitigate risk and support genuinely, like the rest flows so naturally. But I feel like it requires time, which is really difficult because a lot of frameworks don't allow it. And that's the reason why none of my consults are short. Like we joke, I don't understand really how to even do a 1 hour consult, really. You need the time because you can't build trust and you can't create safety without it. Yeah.
Robynne and I had this discussion as well around time, and it's been a really big topic for me in particular. I go through lots of different creative stages with like these, you know, sort of highlight words, and time at the moment is a really big thing for me and the work that I do day to day. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, Amy. I think if we can, and I think this is what we try and do at home, right, is that we provide that time and space for women to land wherever they need to land, and then allow that to either unravel, come together. But it's the time and the space that we don't allow mothers to just fall into that transition of motherhood in whatever way they need to fall into it. And while ever we don't provide that time, that preventative care is going to be really difficult because the systems and the structures around us do absolutely do not allow that. And as much as, you know, we have incredible midwives like Robynne and like a lot of women that I've spoken to, they are also confined by the time that they can give within the system, even when they want to do that. So, you know, I think, you know, incredible places like Juno and, you know, yourself and Home and lots of other healthcare practitioners that I know of, if just at the beginning, if the systems can support time in a better way, I think that might be the first kind of toe in the water of understanding what postpartum needs.
Yeah, and knowing it doesn't all have to happen at once. Like a midwife can't provide that care in that moment, and that's actually fine because that's not necessary in that moment.
Yeah.
But having like a follow-up, you know, at a place like Juno is like it's a great inroad.
I suppose almost like a validation of your experience as well.
Yes.
And recognising that this would have been a really difficult pregnancy or birth or whatever it is for that woman in that moment in time. And a simple question of how best can I support you while you're in my care? Is there anything I can do to make this better, easier? And it's okay if the woman says, well, I actually don't know.
Yeah.
Or I just want, could you get me a cup of tea? Or I just need some space.
Yeah.
I just want to be left alone for a bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's like respecting and acknowledging that that's what the woman wants in that period of time. You don't have to wrap them up in cotton wool and, you know, surround them, because not everyone responds to that sort of type of care.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just been in my sort of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, which, you know, women need to feel like they can use their voice to express that.
Yeah.
So that needs safety.
Yeah.
You know, like it all interweaves into this picture, and really the only thing that I can think of that accelerates that time is understanding the social landscape of motherhood and the perfect mother and all those sorts of things. That's really like once you understand that, you can kind of, once you've found a practitioner or a place that you can, that you feel safe with, I feel like it can all happen a lot faster because you don't have to beat around the bush of having to present in a perfect way or, you know, like all of the masking can kind of just drop away.
Come away. The veil can drop. Before we finish up, can you just tell us what can mums expect when they work with you?
They can expect for me to create as much safety as I can, and that doesn't necessarily guarantee safety, but for me to always have that at the front of my mind in terms. So yeah, that's a big thing for me. They can expect to leave understanding their experience in a different way.
Yeah.
With like just a little more perspective. They can expect some pretty solid tools and frameworks for how things can get better from where they are. They can expect pins and herbs because obviously I am a Chinese herbalist and an acupuncturist, but it's so much more than that just transaction of like these are the pins, these are the herbs. Like if you don't understand what's going on and why, what's contributing, what will help, that it's not enough. So all of that gets built into that offering.
Amazing. Thank you, Amy. We'll put all the links in the show notes for everyone to reach out to you if they feel so. Thank you again. I've loved this chat. I really loved having you on. And I know it's out of your comfort zone, but I really value you being here and the knowledge and the passion that you've shared with us over these couple of episodes. So thank you so much. And thank you, Robynne.
Pleasure.
Beautiful co-host. I've enjoyed it so much.
It was fun. Thank you so much, Amy.
Amazing.
This podcast represents the opinions of our hosts and their guest speakers. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and content here should not be taken as medical or professional advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any personal recommendations and medical care. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate based on the best available information at the time of recording, we welcome any comments, suggestions or feedback via our website contact form, home.com.au/contact. Names and details of personal experiences may have been changed to allow for anonymity and privacy. To join the conversation, join us on social media at Home Postpartum.